All right. Awesome, everyone. Welcome back to
Here.
another topic, another conversation. We are excited about being here, about being live, and back with another conversation. We've been talking about mental health, we've been talking about finances, and today we have the privilege. Let's see if we can get this going here on Instagram of talking about relationships.
Oh no.
Relation.
Sorry, we're having a
Very
little.
good.
We struggling over here,
You're
y'all.
good. You're good. I'm gonna keep waving at you here on Instagram.
There we go.
All right.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. Oh, awesome. All right. So we good, I guess. We doing all right. So here we are with
Bro, you want to
relationships.
know what happened?
What happened?
It's about to be the SOS, the emergency SOS.
I put the phone into the holder,
All right.
into the tripod holder, but I slid it down too far and it was holding the power button, so it was about to send the emergency SOS signal.
Oh my goodness. Oh my, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Did you guys get the new update already for the iPhone?
I have not.
Wait, did they drop 14?
They dropped 14 today, I think was
What?
yeah, or last night. Yeah.
It's an early birthday gift for me.
It's nice. I got it. You can do, all the change of the widgets and some other stuff like that. You can actually, this is probably a game changer. If you're on FaceTime, you can actually scroll out of it, or go home and go on a different app, and they can still see you. You know how usually they would have
Oh, that's nice.
that was a game changer. I mean, not that I'm saying that you want to not be paying attention to the conversation, right?
Right.
Wow.
But yeah, if you didn't see already, I know this is tough for DJ because he's kind of a Clippers fan.
Can we move on? Can we move on?
This is from a previous recording I had. I just left it up, just not spitefully. I don't want to say that, but just I just liked how it looked, right? So, but we'll move on. I'll cover it right here. But yeah, here we are with relationships. We've been having a great conversation on mental health. We've been talking about finances, and so we're excited to just jump into relationships and what that looks like, and just in our conversation with the couple next door, right? And so we'll be talking about. And just a disclaimer, 2 disclaimers. First, I noticed that my cable, I have a cable here that's going to my Ethernet, and it's moving. And so I'm guessing it's the dog that's biting it. So in case I do, if I move on the internet at any point, that's a disclaimer. My first disclaimer. My second disclaimer is that, as we were talking before, as we're talking about relationships, we're not just talking about dating and romantic relationships. And at the end, not the end, but in the same vein, we're also not necessarily focused on marriage 100%, even though we are both part of married couples. But we do want to just affirm that marriage is not necessarily the ultimate goal in life. The ultimate goal is knowing Jesus, as you can hear my dog trying to chime in. We happen to be married, and so there is also an unhealthy pressure many times to get married, to rush into relationships, to deepen in intimate ways, simply for the fact of being in a relationship and getting married and having kids and doing this whole thing that that whole stress. So but yeah, we're just gonna be talking about some principles for pretty much any interpersonal relationship. So whether you're in a relationship or not, you can be take these principles to heart, and whether you're dating or not, you can take these principles or not. So first things first, first question, how do you, right, as we're talking about interpersonal relationship, how do you make friends? How do you guys make friends?
This is a tough question. I think it's easy. So this is something that's actually come up multiple times previously. I don't know if I was talking to you about it a while ago, but for us guys, it's pretty easy if you enjoy sports. Right? Like sports is usually a quick bonding topic for most guys, but definitely not the case for all guys.
Yeah, because
but across the board, that's probably like the easiest way to quickly start to build a friendship with another guy.
Yeah.
But this kind of goes back to our first conversation about mental health is, I think, to really, really build friendships, I think the big thing is being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Really. when we're talking about like friendships that actually matter, right? Not like acquaintances.
Right.
I don't know why I just pointed to Gabby because she definitely ain't an acquaintance.
I like it.
But I think the big thing is to really be vulnerable. Let people know like you're not perfect, and that you're here because you're interested in them.
Yeah.
And you find them interesting.
Yeah, that's good.
That's tough. How do you make friends?
Yeah, Gabby, what about
you? About this?
Yeah.
Other than reading the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That is a great book, actually.
Is literally right here. our computer is literally sitting on the book called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, I love it. If I could show you, I mean, I feel like that's the makeshift. Yeah. Books are the best computer holders. What is it? How to make, go down a bit.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
How to Win Friends and Influence. That's good. I like it.
I was just going to say that DJ stole mine because I was definitely going to say vulnerability is key.
Cop out.
No, it's not a cop out. No, I was going to say that but at the same time, also like understanding when to be vulnerable though at the same time, because we've all met those people that are oversharers at first and they're telling you every last detail of every situation in their life, and that can be a little overwhelming. So I'd say knowing kind of when to share, but definitely there's a time and a place for sure, because you don't want like to share all your cards all at once, but at the same time you don't want to be so reserved and so closed off that you never actually let your friends actually know the real you and who you are deep down inside. So that's what I would say. Sorry, there's some feedback. It's echoing in my ear a little bit, so I'm getting a little confused.
I just realized I have my earpod for Instagram in my headphone which is picking up. I think, you know what I'm saying? It's picking up the sound.
We're having some technical difficulties, but it's okay.
A little better.
For us? Yeah, for us it is. I don't hear us anymore.
As I read Jade's comment, I was like, it makes sense because I have my headphone in my headphone, and it's picking up.
I feel like you be saying stuff we don't be saying. Right? Where you be getting these comments from?
Yeah, right. You guys, you don't see the comments? You just scroll up or down a bit? No, on Instagram.
On Instagram? No, I don't see it.
Oh well.
Okay,
well, they don't like us.
Better. I'm gonna try to do this like DJ mix. I don't know what I'm doing, but I love that. Yeah, that's very good. I have to agree with DJ. I think for me, I saw one of my friends. I don't know if Christian's still on Instagram. Yeah, he is. So Christian, we met at Southern too. And the same way, right? It's through random stuff like sports, right? A lot of the friends that I've made, it's been at the gym, playing basketball, playing soccer. It's been at socials and stuff like that. I think there's a common thing of just this idea that whenever there's just shared interests, and you're there, and you're like, oh, you like the Lakers too? Oh, sweet. Okay, let's watch the Laker games. And before you know it, you're like, boom, boom, boom. And you go from friends, acquaintances to friends to, you develop a deep, intimate level of friendship. What I did want to say, though, it was very interesting. I don't know if you guys know who Simon Sinek is.
Yeah.
That this business mogul. But, there was a podcast that he did with, forget, but oh man, who was it? I don't know. I don't think it was Malcolm Gladwell. I'm not sure who it was.
Malcolm Gladwell is the truth.
Oh, he's If you haven't checked him out, Revisionist History, check this guy.
That is a deep podcast. I was just talking to somebody about that today.
I love it. That book. That book. I mean, I want to read his book too. Talking to Strangers too. I think along those lines.
I read that
too. Is it good?
I read that. It was very good. It was very good.
Yeah, I like that. But he's Simon Sinek says that it was his, I was gonna say his call to ministry, but his call to be this business teacher, right? In what he shares about more about the ethics, I think, and how business should be run. And he says that if you were to ask your friends why they're your friends, you would be very surprised with their answers. So he's like, whoever you're with, in your friendship relationship, ask them why they are with you or why they like you, why they are in this relationship with you. And he says, as you keep pressing them, initially they'll give you answers. It's like, it's just cause. It's like, no, give me a reason. Like, why am I your friend? Like, why do you consider me your friend? And they're like, oh, because, and he said at the core of it, the reason they're going to give you as to why you're their friend is because of something that you give to them. So it's kind of, in a sense, it kind of seems something kind of selfish that I consider you my friend because of something you do for me, right?
Oh, yeah.
He says a lot of, a friend that he asked was, the reason he was his friend was because Simon gave his friend kind of purpose and gave him a reason, right, in that friendship. And I thought it was very cool how, I think that's a lot of times as we go into deeper relationships and friendships, that's a lot of times the reasons that why we keep friends, right? Why we keep each other as well. We've been talking to this conversation, right? How many people we've gone to, high school, college, university, graduated from, and you really don't keep up with, right? But it's these friends that you really have this, you're either on the same trajectory, in the same direction, going to the same destination, want to grow together, that you really keep, in your circle. So I thought that was very interesting. A lot of the people that you're with, you were with them because they bring something out of you, or they bring something for you that makes you a better person. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it does sound selfish, but it's real. Like, it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's ultimately, like, at the end of the day, all of us are really concerned with self-preservation, staying alive. Like, I'm going to do whatever I can to stay alive. And while we're alive, we want to live the highest quality life. So we're going to find the things that make us feel great. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not relationships. Sometimes it's, a substance of sorts.
Right.
But we're going to find whatever it is that makes us, feel great. And if that's another person, by us just latching on to a certain characteristic that they have, or a certain way that they make us feel, then yeah, we're going to do that. Right. Like, so it makes sense. It makes sense.
I like that. So along those lines of, right, we talked about kind of how we make friends. I guess we could even ask, how do you keep friends? Right. And I think there's another level of intentionality, right, in your relationships that really play into that. But what would you guys say are some like key DNA or RNA, whatever side you're on, some key DNA or breakdowns of successful relationships, right? Whether that be, as we're talking about friendships, I think even obviously relationships, dating, marriage, if you're in a couple, but also in your coworker relationships, right? What do you guys think are some key characteristics or DNA? What does that look like, right, in those relationships that make good, lasting ones and effective ones?
Take it away.
Yeah, this is tough. So I think for me, a lot of this, comes down to psychology, right? Like, when we lose a friend, right? When we talk about this, how to keep a friend or maintain a positive relationship, right? When we lose a friend or we lose a significant other, in the sense of that they're no longer in our life or no longer the quality of relationship that we once had, right? Is like, when we get to that point that person is no longer a friend or an associate or whatever the case may be, it's something happened that we considered was unforgivable, or something that was enough to push me over the edge to not like you or be hurt by you. Oftentimes it's that we're hurt, right? Like, even though we may be angry or like, oh no, that person is just never going to be good at this, or this person is just this, or they're backstabbing, or they're just not loyal. Like, a lot of it comes down to our own personal hurt. Like, we're hurt by what they did, by what they said, by the way they made us feel. And as a result, we feel like we can't keep that relationship with them. Right. So I think a lot of those things might be going a little bit deeper than what, we anticipated.
You went from finances,
right?
To my heart,
right? But even on this note, right, it comes down to that person, was someone that you consider close and whose opinion you valued. And as they become such, like, they have the ability to hurt you once you really care about them and what they think, right? Wow. And when that person gets that ability, gets to that level where they can hurt you, then it's more likely that they're going to kind of push on that tender spot, which is like some of your fears, right?
Right.
So for instance, speaking of DNA, like, there's a book called DNA of Relationships, right? I can't say I've read a ton, but I've easily read probably 4 or 5 different books on like relationships and psychology and marriage and different stuff. And this book is the best relationship psychology book that I've read, and has had the biggest impact on my life and our relationship. Basically, the book, in a very unfair synopsis, basically, they talk about fears, right, that we have as humans. We all have some type of fear. And some of us are going to say, no, we don't. Like, I don't have a fear when it comes to this thing. I might be scared of spiders, or snakes or something, but not when it comes to relationships. Like, I don't have any fears. What am I fearful about? But it's so deep that some of us don't even know.
Wow.
Including me. It took hours and days of reflection and being honest with myself to figure it out. But one of the things that I am fearful of is fearful of being unwanted. Right. So it's something that stems from my childhood, where my parents, weren't really around in the manner that I wanted them to be. Right. And because of that, I felt unwanted. I maybe wouldn't say unlovable, but I felt like the people that I wanted to love me and want me didn't really want me. And so as a result, that's played out, in my adulthood, in relationships. Some of the, various speed bumps and hurdles that we've had to get over in our relationship kind of stem from that. And so it's hard, and Gabby could share what, the thing is for her.
Yeah, I absolutely second everything that DJ said, because that book was, I have listened to part of it. I need to read actually all of it, but I've definitely gone through in the book, they refer to it as core fears. And I need to go through that again. But for me, like, my particular, I guess, biggest fear is just this fear of never being good enough. Like, I've always struggled with that. Just the feeling of like, my grades aren't good enough, my hair isn't curly enough or straight enough, or I'm not curvy enough, to be attractive to the opposite sex, and that's something that I've really struggled with, and that once again has brought up multiple issues in our relationships that we've had to really work through. But yeah, definitely the fear. And it talks about, like, this book, like, actually, like, will break down like all these different fears, and it's pretty crazy, especially when you start resonating with, like, oh my gosh, like, I think that this is actually like what I go through. It's crazy how enlightening that can be. It's also, it can be kind of difficult sometimes too, to kind of swallow that and be like, wow, like DJ said earlier, some of us may think like, oh, like, I don't have a fear, why would I be fearful, but it's I think just because of the world that we live in, we all have insecurities that we deal with to an extent. And so that's what I would say mine is, for sure. And it's taken a lot of time to kind of work through that.
And it does. And then it plays out, right, in a situation where we might cut a friend off because, well, for me, maybe say, I can't really say I've had this with friends, but it's like, maybe they don't invite me, to an event. And because of that, it makes me feel like I'm unwanted. Right. And so that's going to hit a deep chord for me. And it's going to be like, okay, you stole money from me and I forgave that, but you ain't invite me to this event that was special, and it's like, oh man, like, I really feel like you're not my friend anymore. Like, that's really, wow. Like, are you my friend if you really did that? And it could actually be the same exact thing that could happen for Gabby, but it hits her differently for a different reason, right? A friend doesn't invite her to this event, but because for Gabby, it's well, you didn't think I was like good enough to go to that event, and so it's like, wow, like, that's what you really think of me. And we go through these processes and make these assumptions, not really knowing why that person made those decisions or, and whatnot. And so it's kind of, when you find yourself in a situation that maybe you're struggling to keep relationships, whether romantic or not, just family and friends, and it's like multiple different people, multiple different times a year that you're cutting people off and stuff, Just being 100% honest. Like, you got to stop looking at other people and start looking at yourself. Because eventually, like, we got to go, okay, maybe it's not everybody else. What's wrong with me, or what am I not understanding about myself? That's making me feel like I got to cut everybody out of my life.
Yeah, that's good.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, whoever's, you know, if you're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, let us know what you know, if you're cool with sharing some of the fears that you may have in relationships. As you guys were sharing, and that this was segue to my fear. Have you guys done the Enneagram by any chance?
Yeah.
You have, right? Okay, so that's true. You do have. Let me actually, because I think I have you guys on my list of Enneagram list. Let me double check if.
Oh, see, you's a friend. You a friend, bro. You got people cataloged.
I gotta literally show you. I have on my notes on my phone. I literally have, I would say at this point, probably close to 50 people that I know.
Oh, wow.
And their numbers. Because I heard from a podcast too on Enneagram about companies doing this, that they would put and for those that don't know, Enneagram is just a personality test. For me, it's probably the best one now, the most practical one. It kind of breaks down your basic fears and your basic motivations. It goes back to how you handled conflict and problems when you were growing up, right? How you were talking about, DJ, what you grew up with, and that's how kind of you live life afterwards. So let me double check. Let me see what. Do I have you in Florida, Peeps, or AU? I broke it down into. I don't know if I do have you guys.
Dang, bro! Wow.
What? Oh, DJ right here. Yeah. I didn't get Gabby though.
I don't think Gabby ain't do it for a long time.
Well, I
okay,
did
but
do it. I just
before you tell me what, let me guess if I and see if I guess right.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
DJ, you're a 3? No, 2. There's a 2.
Oh man, I don't remember the numbers.
I have 3 here, but I feel like because the reason, because you said kind of your fear of being unwanted, really stems, a lot of it stems from, I think, the Enneagram too, which is this idea of desire to feel loved, of being, I don't know, desired, of needed and appreciated. That's what broke that, and then for Gabby, your idea of what's the word that triggered me that you said? You said what was a fear of?
Fear of not being good enough.
Not being good enough, right? And I thought of 3 because 3s, they have this, it's kind of this image, not image based, but this, kind of this fear of like, of having this image that you need to be perfect in, right? And as a 9, I'm a 9. My biggest fear is conflict and loss and separation, right? So kind of normal, which I see a lot as you guys were sharing, right? How I think it's so important in talking about this to not only know, to I think know our own DNA in relationships, like what is it that we bring into a relationship, right? So, obviously our best examples are with our spouses, but with Chantal, as I hate conflict, and I hate, I'm terrified of loss and separation, right? I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I don't lose or separate or bring any conflict. But that can be a problem because I won't have those crucial conversations that maybe need to be said, and I bite my tongue, and I can get trampled on, case in point, some of the roommates I've had, and if you guys are listening, I'm sorry, I've forgiven you, but but I'm the type, if I'm in, and I remember this happened in college, in later times in life, where I just won't speak up for myself unless it's I see someone hurting, the people I love or people around me, then I'll say something, right? But if it's for me, most of the time it's like I can stomach it, I'm good. I remember like my roommate, it's just little things like, when you're a roommate in college, your roommate leaves the lights on, he's working late, and one of my pet peeves is someone that's not considerate for others, right? Like when you don't think about others, when you're just, but at the same time, if it's me, I'll stomach it and I'll take it, right? But he would be like music or I was not gonna say she, so I was, because we obviously went to Adventist University, so it was not a co-ed dorm. Mom, don't worry.
Mom,
but, blast music, and so I would, instead of confronting and saying, "Yo, can you lower your music or can you turn it off? I'm trying to sleep," I would sleep with headphones on, right? And then put cover my eyes with something and just say, I'd rather not have the conversation and go out of my way to avoid conflict and bring about so much more stress and anxiety for myself, right? Rather than just saying the easy thing of just saying, "Yo, lower your music, I'm trying to sleep." You know what I'm saying? Which for a lot of people, right, in that Enneagram scale, you know, if you have an 8 or a 1 or different numbers that are unafraid of that and that maybe thrive on that, you know, having those conversations, it was easier for them, right? So it definitely shows you, right, wherever you stand, and you know, whether I've diagnosed you guys as a 3 and a 2, but how important it is to, in any relationship, to know yourself, right? And because when you don't, I think those are the times when you have all these problems and you're like, what is it about this? And many times I feel like it's our own problems that come to the table that we don't address, and we're breaking relationships left and right because we're like, man, this person doesn't sit well with me. And many times maybe the cause of it all is myself, right?
Wow.
And that's tough to stomach, right? Because obviously it's tough to get over, and you have to process through what you've been through, right? As we were talking about mental health a couple nights ago, right, Gabby? It's not that you just X out that part of life and say, oh, that never happened. You know, it's now you learn to live with it and you learn to cope with it. In the same way in our relationships, right? Learning how to cope with what we've been through and what we're going through. And I think there's great art. You know, I would recommend highly the Enneagram. It really has taught us in our relationship, you know, with Chantal, you know, she'll be extra and intentional in making sure I speak up. That's the thing I don't do, right? I'm avoiding conflict. I'm avoiding any loss separation. So, so yeah, those are great things. I think it's very important to know our core fears so we can really learn to navigate in relationships, right? Because that plays out
most definitely.
Your coworkers, you know, how you treat your coworkers, you know. This is my last thing, and then I'll turn it to you guys. But you know, even now as a pastor, right? Imagine I'm pastoring a church, and it's like, you know, I'll be in a meeting like, I think we should do this, but I mean, it's whatever the group wants, you know. And if you know, I'm kind of that type of guy. You know, I'm doing better. I've grown, right? Thankfully, and I'll stand up for myself a lot more now. But originally, it's like if someone was like, I don't like that idea, I was like, yeah, I didn't really like it either. I don't know why. So it's learning that and knowing, I think at every point that your voice is needed and important, right? Yeah, so
yeah, that is good, bro. I like that because it is. We've had to, I don't say we had to, but I think we've both since reading that book, DNA Relationships, and like having deep conversations about it. I mean, enough that like I'll speak for myself, enough that, you know, when we talked about it, it like brought me to tears because of the trauma that was tied to it. You know, to that fear is, you know, one of the things that I'm very intentional about is making sure that I never do or say anything that is going to make Gabby feel like she's not good enough. You know, like,
that's good.
You know, so just kind of,
oh, that's good. That's very good.
Like you said, being intentional and being mindful, and like same for her. One of the things I told her, right? Like, so we don't have kids yet, right? And one of the things that we've talked about is how basically when we have kids, a lot of the times, you know, the spouse, one of the spouses kind of becomes, you know, kind of you on the back burner, right? Like you're not important anymore. Now it's all about the kids. Right. And I told Gabby, like, straight up, yo, if the kid becomes like the number one priority and I'm not getting love, like, yo, you got to go back to where you came from, little homie. Like, you know, like, and so I told her, and that comes from like, even as I had expressed that previously, I didn't realize where that was coming from. Like, why do I feel that way? You know, and it was this fear of being unwanted. Like, I don't ever want us to get to this place where I feel unwanted in our relationship, you know?
That's good. That's good.
So.
DJ's just hitting everything, man. I really do appreciate the fact that I think that it's awesome that we've both actually really come to understand our fears, each of our individual fears, because it really has played such a positive impact on our relationship. Like now I can be much more intentional. I think that's a great key takeaway from today's talk is just the intentionality portion of it. But his intentionality about making sure that he's making me feel validated, you know, and loved and appreciated and all these things, you know, to make sure that I don't feel like I'm not good enough for him, you know. And then of course me trying to make sure that I'm always showing him how much I love and appreciate and want him, you know, as my husband, as, you know, my one and only. I think that that's been a huge blessing to our relationship for sure. So.
That's good. Yeah. It's so important, I think. Yeah. And just in this, you know, to be real with where you are, right? I think sometimes we want to put on a picture of where we think we are, right? And then it's like, that still bothers me. Or man, I'm still insecure. You can. I mean, thinking about how those fears still move with us, right? It's kind of like we don't really ever get over that fear. It's like we just learn to live with it, right? And make sure it doesn't take over our lives, right? So that fear of being unwanted or unneeded, fear of loss, fear of controversy, conflict, fear of not being good enough, right? I think it's things that we all have to work with and deal with. And it's tough because it's like, no matter how much you progress in life, I feel like, or what you go through, it's always, those voices are always in your head, and just and they can really derail not just your relationships, but your own life, right? If you let that voice really speak into you, and just you won't be able to enjoy anything. And I think that's why it's so cool in the when we look at at the importance of faith in relationships, right? When you see what God thinks of you, right? Whether it's speaking about being unwanted, where God's like, hey, I want you. Whether if the world doesn't want you, I want you, right? Or you're good enough for me, Gabby. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, you are perfect. And for me, it's like, yeah, I've called you to say some things that are going to be uncomfortable. Like, it's okay. It's kind of those promises. Like, if they persecuted me, Jesus says they're going to persecute you, right? So don't be afraid. So it's really cool that every fear that we may face, right, whether we're taking the Enneagram scale or anything, where God really can speak into that, and really awaken that, even though the earthly parents we've had or the earthly relationship we've had have not been perfect, we still have a God that is able to speak into the fears that we have, right, and those insecurities. So I think it's powerful. Relationships, I mean,
well, I just start Vespers tonight.
No, right, we'll pick up the guitar and just
see.
But guys, tell me a little bit as we go into this right here, the importance of crucial conversations. I mean, this is probably going to be good for me, but because I'm scared of those. But how do you guys deal with and especially now, I think this is very good now, because I mean, you get on Facebook nowadays, aside from watching the couple next door, a lot of divisive language and rhetoric, right? What I'm saying, like a lot of whether political or whether you're for Black Lives Matter or not, whether you're for NBA restart, how do we have crucial conversations without I don't know, shutting the other person out, or with how do we, I don't know, in your take, guys, as we kind of talk about relationships, right? I mean, you're gonna have coworkers you don't see eye to eye with in the political sphere and religious sphere, and even your daily living sphere. How do you navigate through these conversations without, I don't know, shooting yourself in the foot or hating your life, right? And just saying, man, I don't want to.
Yeah, I think that man, I'm telling you, I've seen some arguments on Facebook where it's just not productive at all, really. Like, people go back and forth, and it's just terrible. But I'd say that if you handling these crucial conversations, I would say the first thing is really even being willing to have a conversation. I think that's the first step, because so many people aren't even willing, because all they're going to do is just spew out, their opinions and what they think is fact and everything like that. And so many people, and when it comes to conversation, conversation should be two-sided. It's a two-way street. You have, the listener, and you have the speaker, and then the roles reverse, etc. But I think just even being willing to be open, whether that be a fan. I mean, actually, this past week, just to give an example here, we had a pretty interesting conversation with my family, just basically about politics and about kind of Black Lives Matter and social justice and racial justice, and it was just kind of just getting to know, okay, well, what is it, the things that you guys stand for, and what do we stand for, and what are the things we have in common here? And really interesting conversation, because it would be easy to say well, these are your beliefs, or you voted for this person, so I automatically don't agree with you, and we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. But actually sitting down and being willing to have a conversation, I think, is the first step. The second step, I'd say, is actually being willing to really take the time to listen to what the other person is saying. And these sound so simple, but when it comes down to actually doing them, sometimes I think that can be pretty challenging. But actually being willing to listen and trying to understand, trying to walk a mile in that person's shoes, even if, it makes me think a little bit, I don't know too much about this, I will say, but it makes me think, have you ever seen, Sebastian, like where you have like an African-American person that's infiltrated like the KKK or something like that. Have you ever seen stuff like that? Like it makes me, it's always interesting to watch those videos or to read those articles because it's like that person's literally going into like the lion's den, so to speak, and going with the exact opposite of everything that they stand for and believe. But sometimes they come out with these surprising conclusions on the other end, that like, wow, we actually, even though using like the KKK, for example, they have such dangerous rhetoric and really violence, but like sometimes when you actually get to know the people, you realize that sometimes they have some similar beliefs to what we do, which is crazy. But I think going back to everything, being willing to have a conversation, being willing to listen, and just to kind of have that back and forth, but in a healthy way, not just like sitting there like la 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 la. I'm not gonna listen to anything you're saying. That's obviously not productive. But I would say those two things are important. And sometimes also accepting when you're wrong too. That can be a hard pill to swallow. But just knowing that, like, yes, we have our beliefs and what we see to be true in this world, but sometimes we maybe don't have the right stance on something, and we need to be open to listening to another person's perspective as well.
That's good. That's powerful because it goes to, I think, when you go face to face and I'm peeling the layers back as to why people are the way, or why they stand for the things they do, or why do they vote the way they vote. It's a lot of times going to come back to those fears we were talking about, right? It's like I'm afraid for my family. I'm afraid for my security. I'm afraid for my religion. I'm afraid for my freedom, right? I'm afraid for my rights, right? And so if we're able to peel back, I think, and really say, hey, yo, we have the same fears. I mean, I fear for my family and you fear for your family, but the way we're going about it is differently, right? So I think we're able to start from a common ground, which is tough because many times these are hot topics, right? And they're hot button that from the beginning, it's hard to you, it's like, how can I sit here and listen to, but if we're able to get to the core of that, maybe we can help each other see, the point of like, oh, I see why you would go in this direction and take these steps. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense, right? Because now I see, right? So yeah, I like that. It really unpeeling the layers and taking the time, right, to really have those conversations, which can be, I've tried having those, and it can be really like, you just don't get it, and I don't want to spend the time sharing it with you, right? And so it does take time, but yeah, great points there. DJ, were you gonna?
No, that's good. I think probably there are two things I would probably add to that is, it's okay if sometimes you need a mediator in these situations, right? Good. Like sometimes we're just so far on one side of the spectrum and on the other. Hopefully maybe you don't find yourself in a situation like that with a friend because you can choose your friends. But you might find yourself in a situation like that with a family member where it's just like, yo, we're on or hopefully not. Hopefully you did your research, but you might find yourself in a situation like that where it's just like, yo, you're on completely opposite sides of the spectrum as far as your opinions on something, or how you feel about it and just the issue at hand. And sometimes because there's so much tension and so much heat there, it's just like it's hard to overcome. And sometimes you need a mediator to go, no, you shush, you shush. All right, now you get to speak first. And while you speak, you're going to listen. They're going to listen, and vice versa. Sometimes you need a mediator, right? And then I think that there does come a time where eventually it's just like, yeah, we're not going to get anywhere. And this is just not healthy. This relationship maybe isn't bringing actual value to my life. I'm not bringing value to yours. And all this does is bring heartbreak, frustration, anger, stress. And I can't see the end of it. We've tried multiple different ways to, to rekindle, or fix, repair, or reconcile. This this issue. And it's like, if we can't, then well, we just say farewell, and still hopefully have goodwill towards that person, and
I like that. Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's a great importance in just, if you're up for it, and I mean, it's tough to force someone to have a conversation, right? But if you're both able to sit down and say, hey, just being able to dialogue, kind of, what I was sharing, peeling, back what's our core desires. And sometimes even, I think, restating what you're hearing, right, I think is a great, where you can be like Chantal can say something and like, oh, I'm about to, and then you're like, wait a minute, maybe you're not meaning what I have interpreted, right? Because I'm interpreting, same, let's just take Black Lives Matter, not to get into that, one side will say, yeah, let's go. The other side would be like, I can't align myself 100%, you know what I'm saying? And so if you're able to sit back and say, okay, I know social media, the news, the culture has put a lot of things in. What does that mean when you hear it, and then you'll be able to really understand and be able to communicate more effectively, I think, because you're not fighting. Many times I think we're not even dialoguing in the same wavelength, because you're trying to fight, I think you're here and this is why I'm trying to prove this point. And they're like, that's not even something that, so really trying to say, what is it that you are, comfortable with or uncomfortable with of this, why is this, why is that, and really asking questions to really not just beat them down, but to really try to understand and be like, oh wow, okay, thank you for sharing that and that viewpoint. I know for me, like I said, as a Enneagram 9, I hate conflict. I hate these crucial conversations. It's tough, but it's very needed. But one thing that I think I'm just grateful for, that Enneagrams 9s can do, is that because they're afraid of conflict, they're able to see many points of views, right? Because they have to kind of be a chameleon at times, right? So that's helped me a lot in these crucial conversations, because rather than just, I'm confident of my position, but I'm still able to be like, I see where you could see that. I see what you could come to that. And so I think there is this sort of compromise that exists in relationships, in relating to others as well. So man, that's very good, very good conversation on relationships, starting with go into the personal fears and insecurities and what that looks like, and then also in having these difficult conversations with others. Great conversation. Any thoughts, any other thoughts here on relationships before we begin to wrap up here for the evening?
I don't know. We dropped some good stuff, bro.
Yeah,
this is some good. We got some Vespers thoughts. You got some business stuff. You got some Enneagram stuff. You got to pick your. But I think at the core of it, I'll say something, and if you guys think about it, at the core of it, I think one thing where we are wanting to, in these conversations right from the get-go, obviously, starting with mental health, finances, I think one thing is the importance of community, and then we'll talk about it the following night, but community and connection, right, in terms of mental health, how important it is to be empathetic and understanding, to break stereotypes. In terms of finances, the same thing, right, to surround yourself with people that are educated, that know. And in relationships, right, it's the same idea too, how we really do need each other, right? And it's important to really reach out and to be able to say, hey, I'm going to learn. I want to learn more. I want to be challenged and grow in that. You guys, any thoughts? Last thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think it's important. Like, I don't think enough of us spent, and if you do, good job, but I don't think enough of us I don't think we spend enough time figuring out how we can be better friends and better family members.
That's good.
And oftentimes, like we said, that does start with us, start with getting a better understanding of ourselves. And then we'll know why we react certain ways, why we behave certain ways.
Yeah.
And I think as we become better friends and better family members, we also become, I keep saying Betty, right? Betty. Betty family member. Anyways, we become better. I think we become better family members, better friends. And as we do that, we become better witnesses,
Yeah.
Yo, I'm struggling right now. All right.
Sorry, I'm being.
And my wife is supposed to be my biggest supporter right now, being my biggest hater.
I hope you
Anyways,
can have a Betty answer.
So, you know, but I think as we become more effective,
there you go.
as we become better family members and better friends, I think that we also become better witnesses. Because as we get to connect better with people, and we're more effective at doing that, then we just become more effective witnesses, which is what we were placed here on this earth to do.
I agree, especially since Christianity and having a relationship with Jesus. I mean, that's what we're called to do, and we're called to do that with others, you know, and I feel like building, just what DJ said, like building relationships with others, you know, and powerful, strong, effective, loving, caring, all those types of attributes that build these relationships. I think that's super important. And just kind of piggybacking off of what DJ just said, I think that really spending time to figure out, okay, what is it that I can improve on, that personal development, you know, whether that be through reading books or podcasts or listening to podcasts or whatever it may be, but just spending that time to really dive deep into yourself and figuring out, you know, kind of what makes you tick, whether that also be through like the Enneagram, you know, the personality test, figuring out, okay, how is it that I relate to the world, you know. I think that can be super important because that'll affect how and impact your relationships as well. So.
Oh, that's good. That's beautiful. I love that. And I guess my last point, as we finish up here, since we have Kobe in the back, I just want to say, you know, one thing that, you know, Kobe's obviously passed earlier this year, which I feel like set the imbalance of the world and brought about everything that's happened right ever since his passing. But one thing that I really, you know, despite his shortcomings, and obviously he's a man, he's a guy, you know, he failed many times. He wasn't the perfect teammate or human being. But one thing that, you know, in seeing his legacy post death, and obviously during his life, but even now as people really resonated with his life, was the idea of just his idea is that, you know, what legacy are you leaving behind, right? And thinking legacy, and even though he had a lot of shortcomings, a lot of mistakes, the way he inspired so many people to be the best they could be is something that I'm like, man, I wish I can do that. I would hope my life, you know, people can go through and be like, yeah, he, you know, as Kobe was saying, you know, he was a harsh teammate. He was hard to play with, but he always excelled and expected you, you know, to be the best and to be the best that you can. We have here, hi to our favorite couple. We love you both. Love from TNR from Canada. All right.
Oh, is that Theo and Rachel?
Oh, Theo and Rachel.
Thank you guys. But yeah, I think that's our question for the evening, right? How can we be the best in our relationships, right? How can we, as we went back to that first idea of, right, of how do we make friends and what do friends mean to us? You know, how are we uplifting and making our friends the best that they can be, right? The Betty. It's late. Our tongues are twisted.
Straight up.
That's it. But yeah, go out there, make great friends, be great people in the relationships that you're in. And we hope these conversations with the couple next door have been beneficial. Wow. Tune in next week. As we finish our last night talking about community. You know, it'd be cool to have some more conversation. We'll see how time allows and whatnot. As you can see, we're getting older and we can't stay up past late. But tune in next time. I believe Tuesday 8:15 will be the next conversation. So check that out. Our last one for this, at least this short series here, talking about community, going off the lines of relationships as well. But thank you for those that have been with us and tuning in. We hope that you're able to learn and grow, and as we are, you know, learning and growing as well. So we'll see you all. Peace.
All right.